Okay, hi guys. A few people asked for a data response, so a figure response type question to go through. And what I've done is laid it out so that you get the foundation and the higher question based on each. And just so that it makes it easier for you to forward wind and rewind whenever we've got, whenever I'm talking about a foundation question, I'll underline foundation and then have a chat and then underline higher and then have a chat about it. So you can just forward wind to the relative parts. So we've got one that was from the mock. You've got coastal recession happening here. My first sort of hint for you is make sure you have a really good look at the figure. I know that sounds really obvious, but lots of people just go straight to the question and then hope that they can match something up. So a few things we're going to look for. Always going to look for the scale for size, which is going to help us with the meters question later. It's not that relevant for this question, but I'd still be looking at it generally because it might be for others. I'm looking at kind of whereabouts it is maybe in the world. So this one happens to be in Alaska. You don't need to know too much about the place usually, but it might ask a question for it, especially in the foundation about where this is. And then try and kind of figure out what's going on here. So most people generally ignore this bit, which is the title effectively. So we've got past and projected. So what it's saying is some of this has already happened and some of it currently hasn't happened. So we pretty much know that this is talking about data that was taken from 2002. The reason we know that is because you can see that from obviously 1982 has already happened, 1996 has obviously happened, and you can see they've kind of done grey lines for those, and then the dotted lines further up for these three here are obviously the projected. Now I know we're in 2017, but it wasn't obviously at that time. Okay, so on to where we are. So if I underline foundation, so there we go. So that will be where you can forward wind to for the next ones where you will come and see them. Now, for foundation guys, the best thing I can do for you here is say that you've got to understand what the sentences are asking you about the data, but actually almost as importantly as that, you've got to make sure they kind of make sense in English. I have a few people who you have written out the answers to these, and you read it back, and I've read it back with people and they go, yeah, it doesn't make any sense in English. So we've got something here. It says complete the following sentences that describe the changes in the position of the coastline and the impacts in Alaska. Some of the words and dates and numbers are in below, so you don't need to use them all. And remember, you can't use anything more than once. There'll only be just 4 answers in there that you need to take out. And it's likely that there's going to be a mixture there of the numbers, the places, things, so it's got a whole range. So figure 1a, which we've already just looked at, shows the position change of the coastline. So the first one says a something year period. So figure 1a shows the changes in the position of the coastline over a something year period. So it's got to be a number at this point. So if I put in, I had a few people in mocks and things so figure 1a shows a change in the position of the coastline over a school year period or an ocean year period. It doesn't make any sense. It's got to be a number. So already, it's already got to be either this one here, 45, or 63. So then you've got to just figure out how many years it's over. Okay, and the way to figure that out is then we start at 1982. So I'll change colour on here. So we start at 1982 and we're going all the way over to 2017. So this one's going to be 45 because that's the year period that it's over. Okay. If we put any other number, I mean, understandably you might put 63 in, but any other number wouldn't make any sense in English. Okay, so by something, the boat dock has been destroyed by the sea. Okay, so if I put by less the boat dock, by school the boat dock. It doesn't make any sense. So we're looking probably for a date at this point. So it's saying by either 2012, 1986 or 2002, because those are the only dates you've got, so it's got to be one of those. Okay, so then we go and have a look over, find the boat dock. So the boat dock is over here, and it says by something date the boat has been destroyed by the sea. Why by 2002 it hasn't quite been destroyed, the line's before it, so the line is here, but it would have been destroyed by the next date. So let's go for 2012 on that one. Okay, by 2017, Newtock will lose its, or what's it going to have lost by? So I might actually, if I was in the exam, draw a line. So what's going to be lost? We've already told about the boat dock, so it could be that if it was up there. The water source is going to be gone. That's about it. That's the only thing that's kind of this side of the line. Do the arrows down there, okay? So we've got either the school, the ocean, but it's not going to have lost its ocean. It doesn't make any sense. It's going to have lost, therefore, its water source. Okay, and it's likely that the coastal changes may cause what? So it might cause water source people to move away. That doesn't make any sense. 45 people. We've already used 63 people. Well, it doesn't say anything about how many people are going to move. So at this point, it's either going to be less or more. So it's likely that the coast will cause more or less people. Well, if it's eroding, if the coastline's going away, less people aren't going to move away, more people are going to move away. So that's why we've got more. Okay, and then what's the distance between point A and point B? So the way to figure this out, if I just clear down the map here, is simply to look at the scale. So let's highlight the scale, and this one's true for higher. So higher guys, you can start listening in now. So we're having a look at sort of the distance. Now you've got some options in foundation. In higher, you're going to be asked specifically for what it is, but they will allow a range, and they allow the range that they allow foundation as well. The way that I would always do this is simply get my ruler, figure out how much it's there. So for example, if it was 1 centimetre between 0 and 150 and 1 centimetre upwards, measure roughly where A to B is. In exams, not always, but they don't tend to make things really, really complicated. So what they don't tend to do is, if I scrub this off here for a moment, they don't tend to do it sort of like 160 or 140, so kind of like really close in here. They tend to make it either on 150, on 300, or halfway between the two, which is in this case what they've done. Okay, now for the foundation guys, I mean less than 150 would mean that this line up here, this A to B line, is smaller than this gap, which is just silly. That's not true. Could be 150 to 200, but again you're saying that that line's about this length of this gap here, which is just not true. 300 means that this is almost this length, which again is just not true, which leaves us with this. So anything in there in that sort of size. So if we put up the answers there from the exam board, you can kind of see where they are for that. Okay guys, so this is foundation and higher. We can do this together. The foundation question is virtually the same as the one down the bottom here, so we'll do them both together. So it says here, using figure 2b, and that is key. So the fact it says using, I know it doesn't sound like a very important word, but what I'm saying is, please can you tell me about specific things that are going on in this picture? Suggest, so you don't have to know exactly, but just give some ideas. The impacts doesn't have to be good. Remember, always keep going on about this. The likelihood, though, is if it's flooding on people, so there's some key things in here, then it's not going to be great, but it doesn't have to be bad. Okay, so essentially, though, it says suggest the impacts. It's 4 marks, which means you know that it's kind of a 1 + 1, 1 + 1 question. You describe something, you explain what the impact is going to be. So you get 1 mark for picking up the issues on the map, and then you get 1 mark for saying why it would be an impact on people. Okay. If you just talk about flooding generally and the impacts on people, and you're not talking about this map, maximum you can be able to get is 2 marks, and it's got to be the impacts on people. Okay, so if you talk about how it's going to impact on, I don't know, let's say eroding away bits of the river, but don't mention people, you're not going to be able to get the marks. Okay, so main things I'm looking for if it's impacting on people is how are people going to get transport around, houses going to be moving out of because of flooding, relocation of people, that sort of thing. Okay, so first of all I'm going to have a look at the map, and basically these are the 2 things I'm looking for. Okay, so flood warning and severe flood. So anything that's red or dark red, anything around there, that's going to be an issue. Okay, so to do with people, all I'm going to do, I highlight this in, let's go for green, because this stand out a bit more. Okay, I'm seeing Heathrow Airport. I'm seeing a problem with the M25 here. Okay, I've got Weybridge is flooded. I've got Windsor being flooded. Kingston upon Thames is being flooded. So I can't talk about each of those through individually, but I mean, for me, you've got the airport, and then if we're talking about, like, my first point might be the airport, it's likely to be flooded or partially closed down or completely closed down, therefore people aren't going to be able to get flights. So I get 1 mark for saying that it's the airport could get flooded, the 2nd mark for saying that actually that means people aren't going to be able to get flights, they're not going to be transport, it's going to affect business. Then I've got 3 settlements, Windsor, Weybridge and Kingston upon Thames, which are going to be flooded, which means that people are going to potentially have to relocate their house. I mean, I'm only talking about suggested, so I'm not saying everyone's got to move out, but it's likely that if this area is kind of, if those whole towns, especially Weybridge, is completely flooded, that's going to flood some houses. It also might mean that businesses are going to close down, so either of those would get you the mark. So you get 1 mark for saying actually that the town is likely to be cut off, it's going to be flooded. 1 mark for saying that's because people are going to have to relocate their houses or businesses are going to have to be relocated. And then I've got the M25 and parts of the M3 that's on here, actually parts of the M4. So the motorways are potentially going to get flooded, and that means that people aren't going to be able to drive through those areas. And the M25, it's a very busy motorway, but any of them, the motorways, means that people aren't going to be able to travel around as easily. So if we just have a look at what the example says, so you can see it says 2 points needed for maximum marks, and here's the 1 + 1 that we're talking about. Maximum 2 without reference. I'm not sure why you wouldn't talk about the map. It's pretty obvious that it wants you to, and it makes your life easier as well. So flooding of Heathrow Airport we looked at. Flights could be delayed, road closures, traffic delays, settlements damaged, contamination of water, which I didn't just talk about, but reservoirs serving there. So look, we've got the reservoirs on here, we didn't talk about that. So the reservoirs with contamination, and basically what that means is if flood water gets into drinking water, obviously flood water isn't cleaned, then that could cause a problem. So any of those, but you wouldn't need all 4 of those, just 2 of those 4 is totally fine. Okay guys, so we'll talk about foundation here then. What I want to do, foundation guys, is I know some of you have done this one before, but I want you to have a go at using the technique I used in the first slide and having a go now. So I want you to have a read through, make sure you have a look, including all of the title. I want you to have a go at filling them in, and then go back and say, does it make any sense in English? So if you've written something and you think, for example, the date of the first eruption was, that's got to be a date. It's got to be one of the 3 dates that's given on there. Okay, so go back, have a look at there. So press pause now, and give that one a go. Okay, so if you've done that, let's have a look at what it said on there. So 1585, so remember it's the date. It says the earliest date, so really all it's looking for is for you to go to the dates and have a look at when the earliest eruption was. I think most people would get that right anyway. Active volcanoes are found in the something zone. Well, so what you're looking for, if it was me on there, I'd be looking for the word zone somewhere, because it's not going to try and hide that from you. And the only place that says zone is down here, so there's obviously where that name comes from. The most recent eruption was, okay, so it's just looking at a different thing now. Clearly it's not, a few people might put the most recent eruption was at the 1971, but at the 1971 doesn't make any sense. So therefore it's just looking for you to look for the most recent date and come up with a name, which is over here, look, so it's 1971. Okay, and then, and of course, the death of one man, and the 1949 eruption. So I'm looking for the word 1949 now. So instantly I'm going over here. Eruption was called created a something lake. Well, lava lake, and then we're looking at the word lava. There we go. So it really does try to lead you with these first questions. You've always got to read back to make sure it makes sense in English. Also, the common sense approach is that it will probably ask you, if it gives you some dates, which it has done here, some names of places, as it has here, and also then some other words. So in this case, ocean, freshwater, and lava. Okay, so they're not names of places or dates. Chances are you're probably going to get a combination of the dates, the names, and also the places, which is done here. So it's given you one date, you've got to name a couple of different places from the map, and then you've also got to use one of those words, lava, freshwater, or ocean. Okay, hi guys. Now, this is an example of one whereby people could easily get tricked. So what that means is that you're describing the impact, as it says there. Again, could be good or bad, but it's a volcanic eruption, so you know there's more likely to be more negatives than positives, but not always. But on the environment, now that's one that people will have missed out on, and it's 3 marks. So I want 3 things. Okay, it's a describe question. Okay, so I don't need lots of explanation. If you go into a detailed level of description, then you can pick up 2 marks for 1 point. But I wouldn't ever assume that you're going to be able to do that, because you're not sure where that line between basic description and detailed description, it's a bit vague. So for me, I would always just give 3 different points. So I'm looking on the environment. So I just go down my 4 points here. Explode. So for 15, so I forgot. I'll just do it there. 1585, lava flows added land to the west coast. So added land is my point here that I'm getting for. So my sentence would just say the 1585 explosion added land. So I'm just picking up. All it's asking you to do here is not come up with something new. It's looking for you to be able to use the figure and pull the bits out that you need. And the adding land bit is the environment here. So the eruption created 16 small cones and destroyed the village. Okay, so it's going to sound very brutal here, but I don't care about the destruction of the village. Obviously that's awful, but I'm bothered about the fact that it created the 16 small cones. Okay, I don't need to talk about the village. In fact, just don't even think about putting that in there. It just confuses it, because the village is a human factor, nothing to do with something else that's created. Okay, so the 1949 eruption, here we go, created a lava lake. That's what I want. The lava lake is the thing that's important there. Okay, and then the 1971 eruption of the volcano killed an elderly man again. It's awful that the elderly man died. However, it's not going to get me any marks, so I don't need it for this. So it's not important for this. So the 3 that they're actually looking for in the, we'll just put up the spec. As you can see here is lava lake, okay, added land, 16 cones. And as it's got here, it says that the active volcano zone divides the island. To be honest, I doubt very many people would probably put that down. I mean, the other 3 are more obvious for that one, but the exam board have put it on there because it obviously is a bit where it kind of impacts on the environment. So what they're trying to say is then this kind of divide here, the dotted line, I would have said the other 3 are much more obvious, so probably sort of would put them on. So go from there. But it says here allow credit for the development of description. If I'm honest, I would always put 3 points, regardless of that at all. I want to, there's 3 clear points there. That's what I'm putting down.